Welcome to K&L Gates Working Wise podcast series. My name is Suzanne Thomas, and I'm a partner in the Seattle office of the firm's Labor, Employment, and Workplace Safety Practice Area. In this podcast, I will discuss the use of credit checks by employers. On the federal front, while the Fair Credit Reporting Act does not prohibit credit checks, employers must comply with all disclosure and consent requirements under the FCRA. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission frowns upon their use. It takes the position that use of credit checks is impermissible if such use leads to discriminatory results. It believes that use of credit checks may have a disparate impact on protected classes. A few Congress members have proposed consideration of legislation to restrict use of credit checks when making employment decisions. On the state and local front, a number of states and some local jurisdictions prohibit financial credit checks with limited exceptions. These include California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Florida, Maryland, Nevada, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, Chicago and Cook County, Illinois, New York City, and Philadelphia. For employees being hired from or into those jurisdictions, compliance with those state and local restrictions is required. In general, these laws prohibit an employer from obtaining a credit report or using any information to make employment decisions that are contained in a report that bears on the consumer's creditworthiness, credit standing, or credit capacity, unless the information is either substantially job-related or required by law. Other requirements generally include disclosing in writing to the applicant the employer's reasons for use of such information, including the basis for exemption from the prohibition. Employers should follow the requirements of the Fair Credit Reporting Act if potential adverse or adverse action may be taken on the basis of a credit report. A few states require that credit checks may only be requested after a conditional offer of employment is made and the position is one that is exempt from restrictions. In Vermont, credit information may not be used as the, quote, sole basis for an adverse employment decision. In Washington, D.C., there are no relevant exemptions. Let's use California as an example of the restrictions on the use of credit checks. Employers may use credit reports only for the following positions: a managerial position, a position that involves regular access to specified personal information for any purpose other than the routine solicitation and processing of credit card applications in a retail establishment, a position in which the person is or would be a named signatory on the employer's bank or credit card account, or is authorized to transfer money or enter into financial contracts on the employer's behalf, a position that involves access to confidential or proprietary information, or a position that involves regular access to $10,000 or more of cash. The written notice informing the person for whom a credit report is sought must inform that person of the specific reason for obtaining the credit report and which of the provisions just mentioned is applicable. If an employer is allowed to use credit history in making employment decisions, some potentially valid adjudication concerns could include failure to live within one's means, satisfy debts, and meet financial obligations, because that may indicate poor self-control, lack of judgment, or unwillingness to abide by rules of regulation and regulations, all of which can raise questions about the individual's reliability, trustworthiness, and ability to protect classified or sensitive information. Financial distress can be exacerbated by issues such as gambling or substance misuse. An individual who is financially overextended is at greater risk of having to engage in illegal or otherwise questionable acts to generate funds. Conditions that may raise a security concern that could lead to disqualification include inability to satisfy debts, unwillingness to satisfy debts, a history of not meeting financial obligations, deceptive or illegal financial practices, consistent spending beyond one's own means or irresponsible spending, failure to file tax returns, unexplained affluence, borrowing significant money, or concealing gambling losses or conflicts. Conditions that could mitigate these concerns, however, include the behavior happened a long time ago and was infrequent, the conditions that resulted in the financial problem were largely beyond the person's control, such as due to unexpected medical emergencies, the individual has received credit counseling, the individual is adhering to a good faith effort to repay overdue creditors, the individual has a reason to dispute the legitimacy of the past due debt, the affluence resulted from a legal source of income, or that the individual has made arrangements with the appropriate tax authorities to pay amounts due. Some helpful practices for employers. Evaluate each position for which the employer wishes to complete a credit check to ensure that there is a legitimate business necessity and that the information in a credit report is substantially related to the job responsibilities. Disclose to the applicant the allowed reason for obtaining the credit check. Determine that there is no less discriminatory way to obtain the information. Keep a record of the analysis of the value of the credit checks and conclusion in the event the use of credit checks is challenged. Keep any logs that are required, such as under New York City law. Have a written job description or policy for each position that includes description of the business purpose for the credit check. And avoid a policy of automatically rejecting applicants based on poor credit. Instead, ask applicants about their adverse credit history. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Candell Gates' Working Wise podcast series. More episodes in our series can be found at klgateshub.com, and you can learn more about our labor, employment, and workplace safety practice on our main website at klgates.com. Thank you for joining us.